2 years ago, after I became confined to a wheelchair due to an accident, my husband and mother-in-law's attitudes towards me turned blatantly harsh. One night, my husband abruptly told me, "I'm sorry, but could you please leave this house?" For a moment, I couldn't comprehend the meaning of his words. "What? What do you mean?" I asked. "Just what I said. Mother and I have discussed it and decided," he replied. "By a leave, do you mean you want a divorce?" I inquired. "Yes, that's right. I've been thinking it for a long time now. Now that you can't earn money anymore, I have no need for you." He clenched his fists and spat the words out like blood. "I understand," I said. "Thank you for everything up until now. And lastly, thank you for making sure I leave with absolutely nothing." With just those words, I got up from my seat. It would take them a while longer to grasp the meaning behind what I said. My name is Ashley. After graduating from college, I got a job at my current company, where I've now been working for 10 years. Well then, I'll be leaving first. "Great work today," I said as I closed my laptop and got up from my desk. "Great work today," my coworkers replied. Glancing at the clock by the window, I saw that about 2 hours had passed since the standard end of the workday. The afternoon meetings had run over, and before I knew it, considerable time had flown by as I prepared materials and replied to emails. I exited the office, took the elevator down to the first floor, and peered outside through the glass automatic doors at the building entrance. Night had already fallen. Passing through the company's main gate, I checked the train schedules on my smartphone while heading to the station. On the way, I spotted 2 employees who work in the same department as my husband Joshua walking together towards the same station. I wonder if Joshua is already home, I thought to myself. Recently, we've stopped discussing each other's work at home. More precisely, I naturally stopped bringing it up, as Joshua's mood would visibly sour if I mentioned anything work-related. On the train ride back, I gazed out the window at the passing scenery. Back when Joshua and I were dating, we would often adjust our schedules to finish work at the same time and commute home together. But for the past year or two, our timing has been completely misaligned. My eyes were suddenly drawn to a young couple, likely college students, standing near the doors. Snippets of their lively conversation about a movie they had recently seen reached my ears. The sight of their apparent happiness overlapped with memories from the past. I squeezed my eyes shut, shutting out the view in order to ride out the surge of emotions that had abruptly welled up. "I'm home," I called out as I opened the front door. While taking off my pumps, a glance at the shoes lined up in the entryway indicated that everyone else had already returned. The living room door opened behind me, and the sound of slippers pattering against the floor approached. "Welcome back, Ashley. You're late again today," my mother-in-law said. "I'm back, Mother. I'll get dinner ready right away," I replied. "Oh, there's no need to rush. You must be tired from working overtime, right?" she said. No, it's not that bad. The afternoon meeting just ran long today, but things should settle down soon," I responded cheerfully as I headed to the living room with my mother-in-law, Patricia. After getting married, it was just Joshua and me living together. But last year, when Joshua's father fell ill and was hospitalized, we moved into Joshua's family home and began living with his parents. "Ashley, welcome back. Great work today, my father-in-law gently greeted me from the living room sofa, where he had been reading the newspaper. Last year, he had collapsed from a sudden subarachnoid hemorrhage and underwent emergency surgery. While his condition was critical for a time, he can now lead a normal life after going through rehabilitation. With his mild-mannered personality, I had a good impression of him from the very first time I met him before the wedding, thanks to his affable and approachable demeanor. Having served as accounting department manager until his retirement, he is knowledgeable about finance and has often taught me the ins and outs of household budgeting. Once I finished preparing dinner, the whole family gathered around the dining table. Sarah came over to visit the other day, and I was surprised to see how big her daughter has gotten, Patricia remarked. Is that so? They do say that other people's children seem to grow especially fast, I replied. Sarah was as beautiful as ever. Having a child really does imbue a woman with a more feminine aura, she continued. I suppose so, I agreed. Sarah is the daughter of Patricia's younger sister and Joshua's cousin. Patricia frequently makes a point of expressing her disappointment that Joshua and I don't have children. She doesn't seem to approve of me continuing to work after getting married, and every time we meet, she implicitly conveys sentiments like, "You should quit your job and hurry up and give me grandchildren." Frankly, I find Patricia difficult to deal with. Ever since we started living together, she finds some pretext or another to bring up the topic, especially on days when I come home late from work. If it were a little earlier, I think Ashley could have had the option of giving birth to a child. Well, I suppose it can't be helped since you're busy with work, Patricia remarked. As I made vague sounds of agreement, I glanced sideways at Joshua, who simply continued eating in silence without even looking at me. Joshua and I are co-workers from the same year. We dated for 2 years before getting married. Although he had said he wanted me to become a housewife once we had a child, 10 years into our marriage, we have yet to be blessed with any children, and we have both been working since the beginning. Both Joshua and I dearly wanted a child. We tried everything from herbal remedies to medical exams, but I never became pregnant. While it is lonely, I felt that it would be fine with just the two of us, and I threw myself into my work. However, at some point, I began to sense an invisible wall growing between us. Even though we had gotten married out of mutual desire and set out to make each other happy, a gradual disparity emerged in our relationship. I believe it started around the time Joshua began struggling at work. He never said anything to me directly, but I heard from a coworker in his department that Joshua was troubled by his inability to achieve results on par with his peers. Joshua has a laid-back personality to begin with and doesn't handle pressure well. On top of that, he has a habit of being too hard on himself. Even without him saying it out loud, I could clearly tell he was feeling impatient and frustrated with the situation. Yet, when I gently tried to lend an ear, he would insist, "I'm fine. Don't worry," adamantly refusing to confide in me about his troubles. As long as he maintained that stance, I couldn't force the conversation, and it was unbearably frustrating not being able to be there for him. Even so, on our days off, we made sure to take trips together and spend relaxing time at home, cherishing our time as a couple. When I was emotionally drained from repeated failures in trying to conceive, he supported me without a word. That's why, even if I couldn't help resolve Joshua's current worries, I intended to stay by his side and create moments of tranquility for him. I suppose the turning point was when I received a promotion. My accomplishments on the projects I had participated in were recognized, and my advancement was faster than most of my peers. I'll never forget Joshua's expression when he congratulated me, saying, "That's amazing. Congratulations, Ashley." I could only say, "Thank you," holding back tears. As my work grew busier, the distance between Joshua and I only widened. Eventually, we spent less and less time together, rarely engaging in conversation. By the time my income surpassed Joshua's, we had stopped making eye contact altogether. Watching Joshua's back as he finished his meal and left the table without participating in the conversation at all, I wondered, if I had desperately clung on back then without fear of rejection and tried harder to be there for him, could we have built a different relationship now? Opening my eyes, the first thing that came into view was the pure white light of fluorescent lamps. After blinking a few times, I shifted my gaze to my surroundings. It seemed I was lying in a hospital bed. An N4 was connected to my arm, and my legs were wrapped in layers of bandages and casts. The moment I stirred, an unprecedented level of pain shot through my entire body. Tears welled up from the sheer agony. My whole body felt as heavy as lead, and it didn't seem possible to move. What on earth had happened? I tried to retrace my memories up until right before I lost consciousness. I had gone to work at the usual time this morning, finished my meetings and debriefings, and left the office on time for the first time in a while. I had walked from the company to the station, and then it hit me. The road to the station, more congested than usual with rush hour traffic. The jarring sound of squealing brakes from behind me. The impact that ran through my body the instant I turned around. I realized I had been hit by a car, and the moment I understood that, fear welled up alongside the pain racking my entire body. What state was my body in now? Footsteps approached, and the curtain around my bed was abruptly pulled open. You're awake. You mustn't try to sit up yet. A young female nurse called out to me in a fluster. I'm sure you're confused, but the attending physician will explain everything to you soon. Please rest for now. Oh, okay, I replied. With that, the nurse hurriedly left the room. A few minutes later, the attending physician came and explained the circumstances of my accident and the surgical procedures performed. Apparently, a truck driver who had fallen asleep at the wheel had crashed onto the sidewalk, and I had the misfortune of being hit from behind. I was rushed to this hospital immediately after the accident, and it had been about half a day since the surgery was successfully completed. What about notifying my family? I inquired. We have already informed your husband and his parents, with whom you live, about the accident and the successful completion of your surgery. However, it seems they are all away at the moment and cannot come right away, the doctor replied. I see. Thank you, I said. Joshua was away on a business trip, and his parents had left for an overseas vacation together the previous week. From the doctor's tone, I could somewhat imagine their reactions upon receiving the news. Even considering they were away, it likely wasn't the response one would expect from family members learning their loved one had been in an accident. At the very least, it was subdued enough that an outsider would hesitate to relay it directly. Imagining Joshua's reaction to the news of my accident, I laughed self-deprecatingly. Try as I might, I couldn't picture him being worried about me. According to the doctor's subsequent explanation, while my condition was not life-threatening, the damage to both my legs was particularly severe, and the chances of me being able to walk again were slim. As I listened to the explanation, I felt strangely detached, as if it were someone else's body being discussed, not my own. It was 3 days after the accident when Joshua finally visited the hospital. I was surprised to see him wear a pained expression upon seeing me lying in bed, injured from head to toe. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "No, don't worry about it. I'm sorry it happened while you were away on a business trip," I replied. It had been a while since we last conversed, and an awkward atmosphere hung between us. We both kept our eyes downcast, and the conversation trailed off there. Saying he was going to speak with the attending physician, Joshua promptly left. I couldn't bring myself to call out to him and could only watch him go. 2.5 years had passed since my accident. The injuries to my legs left me disabled, forcing me into a wheelchair-bound life. As the accident occurred while I was on my way home from work, I was able to keep my job, but it became difficult to work as I had before, and I ended up resigning about 6 months ago. Since quitting, I've been spending my days at home, but a couple of things have been bothering me lately. One is that Patricia's attitude towards me has become noticeably harsher compared to before. "Ashley, do you have a moment?" she asked one day. "Yes, what is it?" I replied. "I'm about to head out, but could you please fold the laundry for me? It's just folding, so you should be able to manage even if you can't move your legs, right?" "Of course. Have a safe trip," I said. "Well then, I'll leave it to you," she responded. Ever since I started spending my days at home, the frequency of her snide remarks has increased. It seems she's displeased with her son's wife staying home all day without working, and now, every time we cross paths, a sarcastic comment and a request are sure to follow. I sighed as I folded the laundry. The other thing that concerns me is Joshua's work situation. According to a former colleague, Joshua is struggling to find his place at work more than ever. His subordinates have surpassed him in performance, and his coworkers treat him like a pariah. After coming home from work, he would often shut himself in his room, but lately, he's been taking out his frustrations on me quite frequently. "You have it easy, Ashley. You don't have to worry about workplace relations anymore, and you can get by without working. Mom told me you just laze around all day doing nothing. Must be nice. I wish I could live like that, even just once," Joshua would say, incessantly making snide comments. There was no trace left of the kind man he used to be. I could only feel a sense of loneliness at the sight of how much Joshua had changed. One night, Joshua abruptly told me, "I'm sorry, but could you please leave this house?" For a moment, I couldn't comprehend the meaning of his words. "What? What do you mean?" I asked. "Just what I said. Mother and I have discussed it and decided," he replied. I looked at Patricia, who was sitting next to Joshua. "Ashley, ever since you quit your job, you haven't been contributing to the household expenses or helping out around the house. You just stay home all the time. To be frank, it's a bother to have you here any longer. Isn't it presumptuous to think you can freeload in someone else's home indefinitely without serving any purpose?" Patricia continued, looking at me with a triumphant expression. Joshua remained silent, avoiding eye contact with me. "Joshua is struggling at work, too. Just because you're married doesn't mean he has an obligation to support you any further," she added. I asked Joshua, who was hanging his head. "Joshua, by a leave, do you mean you want a divorce?" "Yes, that's right. I've been thinking it for a long time now," he said. After being together for so long, do you have no feelings left for me at all? I pressed. Of course not. Joshua erupted, as if a dam had burst. Do you have any idea how miserable you've made me feel every time I see your face? You've been looking down on me this whole time, haven't you? Reveling in your superiority, thinking I'm beneath you, day after day. It felt like the threads we had woven together since we first met were being severed, one by one. I put up with it before because you were contributing financially to the household, but things are different now. The current you is just a good-for-nothing without a job or money. Joshua clenched his fists and spat the words out like blood. Now that you can't earn money anymore, I have no need for you. The final thread snapped with an audible sound. I understand, I said. Joshua looked at me for the first time. However, I have one condition. All divorce agreements and proceedings must be handled through a lawyer. If you can promise to uphold that, I'll gather my belongings and leave within the week. Yes, that's perfectly fine. That works for you, right, Joshua? Patricia said. Joshua nodded silently. Well then, it's settled. Joshua, I said. Joshua flinched and looked at me. Thank you for everything up until now. And lastly, thank you for making sure I leave with absolutely nothing. With just those words, I got up from my seat. A few days had passed since I left the house. Checking my ringing smartphone, I saw it was a call from Joshua. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. Hello, I said. Ashley, I'm sorry. Please, won't you come back? He pleaded. What's this about, all of a sudden? I asked. I heard from Dad. Even after you quit your job, you've been covering the household expenses all along. You've been investing since you were still working, right? Apparently, you're earning enough in dividends now to cover the cost of living, he said. That's right. So? I replied. I had left the household finances entirely up to you and Dad, so I didn't know anything. I thought we were living off my income, but it was mostly just your earnings supporting us, wasn't it? I truly regret the horrible things I said to you. I'm sorry, he apologized. Ever since we got married and combined our finances, I had started investing using my own income. Since my father-in-law had recommended it to me from the beginning, I consulted with him alone about managing our household budget and investments. So, what are you saying? You want me to come back and do what? I asked. Well, according to Dad, there's no way we can maintain our current lifestyle on just my income alone. And to be honest, I don't have confidence in being able to continue my current job for much longer. So? He trailed off. Are you seriously asking me to come back just to make things easy for you? I can't believe you have the nerve to say that, I retorted. I could hear Joshua's sharp intake of breath over the phone. The reason I never said anything until now was that even though your feelings had changed, I still believed that somewhere deep down, you cherished me. But you're not the Joshua I fell in love with anymore, I said. That's not true. I still have feelings for you. He insisted. You don't need to say any more. The last time we spoke, any remaining feelings I had for you completely vanished. I'm sorry, but I couldn't care less what happens to you from now on. Thank you, truly, for leaving me with no trust, no memories, nothing at all, I said. Wait, Ashley. Please, forgive me, he begged. All divorce agreements and proceedings will be handled through a lawyer. Don't ever contact me again, I stated before hanging up and blocking all further communication. After that, the divorce proceedings moved swiftly, and I severed all ties with Joshua. The only person I still keep in touch with is my former father-in-law. So, you haven't had any difficulties getting by since separating from Joshua, he asked. No, I haven't had any particular problems so far, I replied. That's a relief. We caused you so much trouble. When I heard the story from my son and his wife, I couldn't help but yell at them, asking what on earth they had done. Moreover, the way they had been treating you for so long was something I should never have overlooked as a family member. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything, he said. No, please don't worry about it. If anything, I should apologize for causing you distress, I assured him. Apparently, ever since I left the house, there had been constant disputes at home. Even after my income was gone, Joshua and Patricia couldn't lower their living standards and continued their extravagant spending. In the end, they even took out loans using their household belongings as collateral. Fed up with his wife and son's complete lack of willingness to change their ways, my father-in-law recently divorced Patricia. This has been a good opportunity for me to reevaluate my life. I can get by just fine with my current lifestyle, and I'm thinking of taking on new challenges, I said with a bright smile.